Welcome back to GP Fans and another edition of Parks Fermé with Ian Parks safely boots on the ground for the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend. And Ian has found perhaps one of the most aesthetically pleasing backdrops that I've seen so far in 2022 for these discussions. It's a sprint weekend as well. There's plenty of excitement in the air, and we're going to need a lot of excitement on track, Ian, surely, because Silverstone just took this season to another level in terms of the on-track excitement that we had on display.
Yeah, I've got the beautiful Styrian Mountains behind me. And if you think this beats Miami Beach for that backdrop, then I'll take your word for it. As you say, Ollie, sprint weekend this weekend, qualifying on Friday afternoon, sprint race Saturday afternoon. That sets the grid for the Grand Prix on Sunday. And if we have anything better than what we saw at Silverstone on the Sunday just gone, then it's going to be an absolutely mega Grand Prix weekend, because, as you say, that was just amazing from start to finish. Thankfully, we weren't talking about one of the darkest days in motorsport history that particular day. The halo saved not one but two drivers' lives, because, of course, we had the F2 driver Roy Nissany saved by the halo earlier on Sunday, before Zhou Guanyu was saved by it as well at the start of the Grand Prix. As I say, anything just on-track action, anything will serve us well this weekend, given the excitement and the too much drama almost that we had in Silverstone, of course.
Now, in terms of the build-up to this race, you know, it's a double-header. Silverstone was only under a week ago. We're still buzzing off that, but there's still been plenty going on this week. For Ferrari, and particularly for Charles Leclerc, you get the feeling that this is a big weekend, almost for their relationship, particularly after the visit in midweek down in Monaco of Mattia Binotto to Leclerc's home.
Yeah, speaking to Charles on Thursday afternoon, he said that was a routine visit from Mattia Binotto. Not so sure about that. They spent the time discussing the past 5 Grand Prix, because the past 5 Grand Prix is where it's all seriously gone wrong for Charles. Finished runner-up, of course, in Spain. He had the retirement, the race previously, but those last 5 Grand Prix, the results have completely tailed off. It really has gone wrong, both on a mechanical and strategic point of view. Especially strategically, questions being asked as to what happened in Monaco, what happened at the last race in Silverstone. Of course, at Silverstone, he was on course for another win. Late race safety car completely shook things up for him. Ferrari had 10 seconds to decide whether to bring him in from the softs. Sorry, just flicking something out of the way there on my screen. Fly is flying around, so I just had to get rid of it. So, as I said, they had 10 seconds. They didn't pull him in. Aging hard tyres. And then they decided to pull Carlos Sainz in and bring him in on new softs. And Charles was just left sitting up for both Carlos, the drivers behind him, of course, Sergio and Lewis Hamilton also overtaking him. And he ended up another race victory, potentially, going by the by, and he was 4th. Very similar to what happened in Monaco. Strategically, it all went wrong there. So he's got to be thinking in his head, what on earth is going on for me? Why wasn't I favoured like Carlos was at Silverstone? Why didn't I get the call to come in for softs? Why couldn't they pity both of us? Double stacked us, wouldn't have hurt us too much. And he's seeing his title challenge fading to some degree. Yes, he made up a few points on Max Verstappen, because Max, as we know, had serious floor damage. That pitched him down the order when he could have won that race, we know. And he eventually finished 7th. So Charles did gain a few points, but not as much as he potentially could or should have done. So an interesting conversation that took place between Charles and Mattia in Monaco. Charles said he just wanted to chill out. He wasn't in the right headspace, but Mattia paid the visit. Hopefully things are sorted. We'll see what happens from here on in. Plenty of more races still to go, of course.
Up at the front of the grid as well, of course, we had the comments last weekend from Lewis Hamilton about the battle with Charles Leclerc around Copse Corner, and the dig, shall we say, that was fired across at Max Verstappen after their incident last year at that same corner at Silverstone. Max has now responded to those Hamilton comments. Are these all coming in a kind of good-natured jest slightly, or are these, you know, the stirrings of a bit more animosity between these two once again? And is Hamilton saying this because he's seeing that perhaps he and Verstappen are going to be competing on track once again with the improvements that Mercedes are coming, and Lewis is getting a bit more confident and a bit more bullish around the paddock once more?
fingers crossed, what you're saying towards the end there is absolutely right, that Mercedes is slowly starting to edge its way towards the front. And these two are going to be locking horns on track more often than not compared to what we've seen so far. Bearing in mind the Mercedes has been porpoising, bouncing, describe it whatever way. That car has not been a good one, that W13 for Mercedes so far, but it has slowly improved. We saw considerable signs of improvement at Silverstone. Granted, Silverstone is a much smoother track compared to Azerbaijan, where the bouncing was horrific. Canada, slight improvement there, but again, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, better in terms of the track surface. But as you say, we are just getting signs of rumblings of their rivalry just stirring up. Lovely comment from Lewis initially, talking about his battle with Charles Leclerc, and effectively saying, look, this is how it could have been, should have been with me and Max the season before. And then Max beautifully responding by saying, glad to see a 37-year-old is learning where the apex of a corner is. Ouch. Yeah, there's a little bit of humour, but there's also a little bit of an undercurrent. We know they've got history, we know they've got form, and we know that when those two do get together on track, there will always be fireworks. And we're just starting to see a few fireworks being lit off track as well as things build up over the second half of this season.
Just quickly, and before we let you go, we've discussed a bit that it's, of course, a sprint weekend this weekend. We've seen it a few times now in Formula One. It's the second time this year that we'll see it. Are you a fan personally? Do you like the idea that, particularly, your Friday job gets all the more important with that qualifying session coming up this afternoon?
I'm going to talk initially about what I've seen from many of the comments that we get with regard to our articles that we post on site. And it is pretty clear from those posters that they're not fans. They don't like it at all. Me personally, from a personal perspective, I do like it. I think it adds an extra dimension to a race weekend. It gives the fans a circuit. It gives those at home watching on TV something additional in terms of competition, rather than just watching practice unfold, which, as we know, second practice, we know it's worthwhile. It's valuable for the teams in terms of setup, in terms of learning for the weekend. But I think in terms of actual track activity, it does lend itself to something a little bit different. Could it be better? Well, at least they've added points now from 1 to 8 for the sprint races this weekend, as for this season, should I say, compared to last year. It was only 1 to 3. That did add a degree of dullness, I felt. There wasn't a lot taking place behind those front few drivers locking horns on track. At least now there's something to fight for. And bear in mind the point situation this season, every point's going to count for those guys. Sergio, Checo, Max, Charles and Carlos in particular, looking to vie for that title. So for them, as I say, points count. And everything this weekend, everything for the final sprint weekend in Brazil later in the season, they're valuable. So I do like it. But as I say, speaking on behalf of the fans and the comments that they've made, they're not really fans. They're not keen on it at all, to be a fan.
Yeah, it's always an interesting one, but you think what the Friday is going to be today in Austria compared to what the Friday was last weekend at Silverstone, particularly FP1, where only 10 of the 20 cars put lap times down, and it was slow viewing FP1. There's a bit more importance on that Friday practice session when it's a sprint weekend, and Ian will be across all of it today, tomorrow, and on Sunday as well in Austria at the Red Bull Ring. Ian, always a pleasure to have a chat with you, mate, and once again, a beautiful session of Parks Fermé getting into the weekend.
Thank you, Ollie. Take care. And keep tuned, folks, on GP Fans Global, across our channels on our website, gpfans.com. All the best. Have a good weekend.